Okay, so a continuation from my last video. And this time addressing the issues of the Employee Free Choice Act, unions, and also the healthcare reform proposals. So, point number one, as far as the Employee Free Choice Act is concerned, this very bill that was introduced into Congress, it's basically dead on arrival at this point. It's not going to pass, it's not going anywhere, and it's completely dead in the water. So if if you believed, or if you were naive enough to believe that this legislation was going to pass in a Democratic Congress, no less, and Democrats were elected by union members and their bosses, then you probably need to do a little reality check here, because it's not going to pass the way it's written. First of all, the check card thing, which is not at all an undemocratic measure, has been portrayed through the mainstream media as undemocratic, because it may just result in employees actually having a free choice at the workplace not to attend management meetings, which discourage those very employees from joining the union in the first place. And my entire take on the unions or union business in the United States is somewhat ambivalent, to say the least. I have never had the opportunity to join a union. Nobody, no representative anywhere has ever approached me in a small business environment, in a medical facility, to join a union. And perhaps if they had done so, I may have considered it, but nobody has come to ask. And if they had come asking, then of course I probably would put my job in jeopardy, pretty much, if I was going to be in any way vocal towards unionization of medical workers, nurses, medical assistants, lab assistants, just in a small business environment to begin with. Although, most of us basically form the backbone of this entire medical system to begin with. I have studied for some time now an organization called ALPA, which is has nothing to do with medical unions. It basically is an organization for commercial airline pilots, people who fly the public around. And in my estimation, from what I've seen so far, is that this union called ALPA is not exactly representative of their members to start with. For the most part, they seem to be acquiescing the business practices of big airlines and big management at the top, while continuously making concessions at the bottom, and basically selling out their grassroots members, those who pay their dues, to various schemes which on the surface would have you think that, yes, they're still representing you to some degree, but then on the other hand, what they're actually doing is they're pitting employees, airline employees, pilots against pilots, at the major airlines against the regional airlines, flight attendants, unions, and so on. It's just a never ending pile of shit, basically. So, no, the unions as such very much are in need of reform, because they're not exactly representing their members, because they have been too acquiescent of management to start with. So it's not that the unions themselves are inherently corrupt. They are, just like the corruption at the top. But acquiescing even further corruption is probably not a good idea. Still, I am in favor of grassroots representation and unions, and I will, never quit fighting for this as long as there are actual members speaking out for working people and those who do the job. And so, just like many other things, it's just a continuous struggle, and it's always 2 against 1, Now, this whole thing about the other bill being discussed is something else. We're talking about not the Employee Free Choice Act, but medical health care reform. Now, this is where everything has become so convoluted that the basic principle, this basic campaign principle coming out of the Obama campaign, has basically been completely pushed under the table, because single-payer health care is nowhere to be seen unless you want to consider some public option plan, and that entails that you are going to be required to have health insurance no matter what, whether you can afford it or not, and then on top of it, you're going to be taxed on those employee benefits if your employer chooses to remain in the private sector health insurance thing. So you're going to be taxed on those benefits, and so it kind of puts you in a quandary as to what to do, So are you going to choose the public sector option, which is not supported in a major way at this point, and then on top of it being taxed for the benefits, that dwindling benefits that your employer is still providing for you? I don't think that's a good option. I think there needs to be a very clear cut between private industry and public interests. And Obama is not in any way positioning himself or anyone else to take on that fight. It's very, it's a step-by-step thing, as usual, but then it's probably going to be a few steps backwards as far as I can see. These proposals are going to go nowhere. And big pharma, big industry, the healthcare insurance market is essentially winning this battle once again. So that's what I have to say about these proposals coming out from the Obama administration, because it's not going anywhere. It is basically just keeping the options on the table without actually making some drastic changes. And that's precisely what is needed, unless we're all going to be crushed by this ridiculous system. Thanks for listening. Back at you later, maybe 2 or 3 days from now. Good night.